authenticity, super strength, electricity manipulation, hyperspeed.
I'd like to purchase some of your finest beer, please.
The character of Shazam in DC comic books is such an ingenious hook for a superhero that it's genuinely amazing to me that we did not see a big screen appearance from this guy decades ago. A kid who says a magic word and is instantly transformed into a Superman-esque hero. Despite its catnip for kids premise, Shazam feels like it's been in development hell for decades, with this latest iteration starting off with the premise of Shazam's nemesis, Black Adam, being the lead character played by Dwayne Johnson. Is that still happening, by the way? I'm genuinely asking here. Anyway, we now have Shazam as part of the DCEU, which got off to a pretty shaky start, but has since started to find its footing through creatively driven, inventive, colourful and fun projects, as opposed to...
Once you've, like, lost your virginity to this fucking movie, and then you come and say to me something about, like, oh, my superhero wouldn't do that. I'm like, are you serious? Like, I'm like down the fucking road on that.
Zach, mate, are you doing okay? Someone should check if Zach is doing okay. In the director's chair of Shazam is David F. Sandberg, mostly known for low-budget but high-concept horror films like Lights Out and Annabelle, the good Annabelle movie, and while a lot of his horror sensibilities found their way into Shazam, if you told me that this was a long-lost movie abandoned in the 1980s by John Hughes or Gary Ross or Chris Columbus, then I would partially believe it, because Shazam feels simultaneously like a throwback to live-action charming kids films of the 80s that we don't really see anymore, but it still has its fingers on the pulse of what contemporary kids are currently into, and I think with Sandberg behind the camera, a filmmaker who got his start making short films on YouTube, that is no coincidence. The plot takes place in the DCEU in Philadelphia, where Billy Batson, played by Asher Angel, has moved into the latest of many foster homes. One day he is transported into the realm of a scene-stealing Jaimin Honsu, where he is bestowed the powers of the Grand Wizard whenever he speaks his name. With the help of his superhero-obsessed foster brother Freddy, played by Jack Dylan Grazer, who you may remember as Eddie from 2017's It, Billy starts to learn more about his powers, but being such a young and rebellious kid, he has no idea what practical applications his power may have until Mark Strong's villain turns up, and the trailers have done very little to spoil what Mark Strong's full role is in the movie, so I'm just going to gloss over that for now for the sake of spoilers. Shazam feels fundamentally old school, but that could be because there's hardly any broader connections to the DCEU. As much as I love the MCU sometimes, it's refreshing to just watch a movie be just a movie, and not get bogged down in exposition for future sequels, with many of the DCEU connections boiling down to a couple of props and an ending gag that kind of falls flat, and you'll understand why it falls flat the moment you watch it. But Shazam is flying high as a movie when it's delving into Billy's growth as a character. For these types of body swap movies, the team usually don't have that much faith in the child actor to pull off the dramatic heavy lifting, so they get the veteran adult actor to do those scenes instead. But thankfully Asher Angel is a real find, and basically carries all of the difficult scenes on his own, with a brilliantly cast Zachary Levi on hand for the action scenes, the superhero shenanigans and body swap comedy. But that's not to undersell Levi's contributions to the film, as in the moment whilst watching the movie, I kind of forgot that these were two completely different actors and was just sucked into the premise of these two playing the same person with just different appearances. Oddly enough, the movie finds its heart in the foster family that Billy is adopted by, with foster mother and father played by Marta Millins and Cooper Andrews respectively being instantly lovable, and it's really refreshing to see a working class foster family depicted as opposed to the eccentric billionaire Daddy Warbucks stereotype of a foster family that's permeated fiction for decades. In fact, the whole working class Philadelphia setting gives the DCEU a down-to-earth and impressionable setting for once. If Shazam stumbles, it's mainly an issue of structure and tone. At 132 minutes, each act feels way longer than necessary, with the movie's climax feeling like a studio-mandated finale, which the film just does not have the budget to adequately pull off. The generic grey army that Shazam has to fight in the form of the 7 deadly sins also desperately needed another go through the design process, as they look generic as hell. But that wouldn't stop the movie from having a really, really baggy second act where Billy and Freddy clash with each other, and I just never ever bought into that drama. Also, while Shazam feels like a premise dedicated to 8-year-olds, especially what happens in the third act, it's also surprisingly dark in places. There is a lot of brutal deaths and injuries and moments of outright horror that will make the movie off-limits to what I feel like is the audience who would appreciate it the most. Shazam will work like gangbusters for an audience of 12 to 15-year-olds, but I feel like at its heart, it's a movie made for 8 to 10-year-olds who likely won't be able to handle some of the really intense shit that the movie throws at them. Also, Mark Strong may always look great in villain roles, but I feel like it's often where he does his weakest work, and Shazam's villain is just not well managed, despite how he thematically links up to Billy Batson's arc, which gets one hell of a satisfying payoff, and then the movie just keeps going for another half an hour, which is a shame. Still, I'd personally rate Shazam over something like Spider-Man Homecoming when it comes to replicating movie tropes of the past, like how that movie paid homage to Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but had so little faith in the audience getting the joke that it had characters actually watching Ferris Bueller's Day Off in the background. Well, imagine that, except Shazam respects your intelligence and will throw in Easter eggs to big, but trusts the audience will know that, and, you know, that they'll get the joke without the reinforcement. Shazam is a really fun movie that I'm not convinced works as well as it could have done, but it still continues the DCEU streak for bold and inventive filmmaking. The cast are great, its heart is in the right place, and while it doesn't really stick the landing, younger audiences will likely really connect with it in a way that I think other comic book movies have forgotten how to. I give Shazam 3.5 stars out of 5. Oh yeah, and stay through the credits.
Sorry about your window, but you're welcome for not getting robbed. Oh, hey, what's up? I'm a superhero.